And welcome back once again to the PCS Summer. This, of course, is the first day of week number 2. I am still Pyrotechnics. He is still Clement. And we've had some pretty fast games, 2 for 2 today, Clement. I wonder if this one's going to go a little bit differently. I think Hong Kong Attitude coming in, losing their first game against Beyond. Now they're going to be facing off against Boom. I think it could be an interesting one.
Yeah, it definitely could be. But first off, we do have to thank our sponsors.
We do, and you can see them. They're right there on the bottom, and I'll read them out for you guys. Thank you so much to our sponsors. It is CTBC Bank, China Airlines, and Chunghwa Telecom. Thank you for reminding me, Clement. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. The producer was kind of poking me on that one, but we could go back to the topics right there. We did have a game that nearly broke the speedrun record. Right now, it's standing at 20 minutes and 47 seconds, I believe. So unfortunately, Machi wasn't able to finish off Alpha Esports in record time, but we get to keep that in our heads. Actually, it's 20 minutes and 52 seconds, excuse me. So we can keep that on the board, and maybe we'll still see it today.
It is entirely possible the way things have been going, but I'm curious to see what you think of this next matchup. Because Boom Esports, they've had an interesting strategy in their game so far. Their mid laner is always somebody to keep an eye on, and we'll take a look at him there. It is Ruby. He's had his own champion pool, his own meta in this, for better and for worse. We will see the rest of the team right behind him there. It's going to be Rocky in the top side, Alex starting today on jungle, and then Wako and Pop in the bottom.
Yeah, so I think there's 2 ways to look at Ruby. The positive side is that he's an anchor for the team. He's foundational. He does the most damage for the team. He's the highest DPS carry, but he only plays his own style, which is late game mages. Now, the other way to look at him is that he is the anchor for the team, but as Nautilus describes it, sometimes this anchor only weighs you down. So I think the big question for Boom Esports is, are they still able to play a fast tempo game, even with Ruby on something like Cassiopeia or Vladimir that basically no one else plays in the meta? I think that's the biggest testament. And if he can play early tempo, I think that's a huge boon to Alex. If you think about Alex and his previous teams and the way he's played, he is much more of an early aggro jungler than he is a farm up and hyper carry sort of jungler type. His tenure oh my god, that was so long ago, but it was back on LMS. On AHQ, sorry, was very much...
This is a while ago.
Yes, it was a real long time ago, before he even went to the LPL. Before that, when he was on AHQ, the way he played was super aggressive, and he would try to out-duel 1v2 a lot of times onto the top side, just link up with Ziv in that situation, and he would play high mechanical champions like the Graves and the Lee Sin. So he was much more about early skirmishes, and that is pretty much the antithesis to what Ruby provides.
Absolutely. Taking a look at our Hong Kong Attitude lineup, we got a roster swap coming in here, Clement, because joining Rock, Kongye, Eminem, and K is going to be the brand new mid laner Wen, coming up from Amateurs here. They've subbed Hongsuo out for this game.
The joke is that Hong Kong Attitude is currently running a baseball team, and they might be heading towards a soccer team, because this is a massive roster with a ton of substitutions. We don't really see them. They haven't been playing the same roster for the past 3 games. So we'll see who they finally settle on, but for now, at the start of the split, it seems like they're just going to try out everyone. No new information on when he was promoted from the amateur leagues, but we'll find out pretty soon in his first debut game.
Yeah, our matchup today to watch, of course, is going to be the jungle. It will be Alex up against Kongye here, and he talked a little bit about Alex's style, wanting to go in and play skirmishes back in the old days. And he's done a little bit of a mix of things now. Here's Xinjiao when he's got his hands on it, and then, of course, the Diana, which is something that's been shared by both of these junglers. And Kongye had I think it's fair to say, a bit of a rough game earlier tonight, but we'll see if he can bounce back against the likes of Alex.
Yeah, I think this is the real question to see here. I'm really curious to see which lane Alex will choose to link up with. If you look at his First Blood participation, it's currently sitting at 0%. So it means that the early game has not been going well. And I'll be honest, I don't really fault him. I think neither of the solo lanes coming out from Boom Esports are very suitable for aggressive playstyles. I think Rocky, even though he loves fighter, has always been rather weak in the laning phase itself. And then you have Ruby, who just doesn't play an early game. And then you have the meta that doesn't favor bottom side. So it's been of a catch-22 for Alex. And I honestly really loved what he showcased in his years on AHQ. It was very apparent that he had a lot of potential, and that's why EDG later picked him up. But I just think on Boom Esports, he's going to have a hard time really linking up with anyone in the early game.
We'll have to see if he can find a way to make it happen. And as it stands in these picks and bans, we've got a lot of jungles getting banned off the board. Apart from, the obvious choices, the Xin Zhao and the Nocturne, Lee Sin banned away, the Diana banned away. It's 4 of them thus far, even though Lee Sin, of course, still flexible. Joining the Akali, we'll see if Hong Kong Attitude make it around for 3. No, they get rid of Leona for Pop. Interesting choices here as Boom will take the first pick here on blue side.
I think it's a really reasonable choice as well. You think about Boom Esports, their main and probably only engaged point is Pop, and his best champion, alongside with Kai Wing, has been that Leona so far, so pretty understandable ban. On the other hand, for Gwen, this is a pick that I think a lot of people are interested in seeing go further. We have seen a lot of just straight up first pick Gwens, and so far it's been working. She's 7-1 in the win-loss column right now in the PCS, so it doesn't even seem like lane counters are really that much of an issue. And we have seen this matchup between Rock and Rocky, and even though they share the same name, I have to say it is a very lopsided matchup from their match history so far. Rock has had the upper hand, and I would love this 1-2 punch if they lock the set in. Set so far has been one of the biggest counters to Gwen. You take that away in the mid or support position, and there really is no answer.
Yeah, I really like it. Hong Kong Attitude coming out after a tough game and drafting pretty smart early on in this one. Boom Esports picking up the Thresh and the Luck and Aphelios to round out bottom side. So we continue this trend of early bot side pickups, despite the priority not necessarily being there on this 11.13 meta, with just so many top side choices and jungle choices banned away already. Hong Kong Attitude will have one more before we enter ban phase 2. And for Eminem... Ooh, would it be the Ziggs?
I would love the Ziggs lock in here.
It's coming.
Outranges the Aphelios. You have 1400 range on that bouncing bomb, while Aphelios, he can reach 1400 range himself, but he needs the use of his ultimate to fill that in. So you're definitely going to have the poke advantage in that one. If you survive the early game where Ziggs has very bad base stats, then you can play a very non-confrontational lane later on. So far, Hong Kong Attitude, you gotta love their drafts. I think Trowy's back on track, and, I praised him in game 1, and then he threw it completely away, but hopefully this time around, he can keep this where it's going. It seems like Hong Kong Attitude are just gonna play for a late game 1-3-1, and they should just stick to that strategy for sure.
Yeah, if they can commit to it, and I think we talked a little bit about how they may have psyched themselves out against the likes of Beyond. Don't think that's going to be as much of an issue against Boom Esports. They ban out the Nidalee. They ban a top lane bully pick in the Renekton. And Boom, for their side, are focusing on K as they ban out Nautilus. What will be their last one here? Do they stick it to the support? As we get a couple more seconds to find out.
Yeah, we probably will see Boom Esports go for a late game strategy. You have Viego, who is not a very fast champion, excels in skirmishes when he already has a bit of a lead, but you have to get the lead first. And then on the other side, you typically have Ruby playing something like a control mage. I think this is setting up for Boom Esports to be a front-to-back big 5v5 team fight, while on the other hand, Hong Kong Attitude, they have far more tools to keep the map split, and they do have those side lane champions like the Gwen already set up. Trundle is another champion that is very good in a 1-3-1 situation because he does allow for easy disengage for his mid lane duo. Usually you swap the bot lane towards the middle, and that becomes your kind of mid lane duo. You want something that can disengage from you. So Trundle's a pretty good pick for that. Also very strong in the early game as well. So they can set up I think an unbeatable 2v2 at this point in Rock and Kongyue. So Hong Kong Attitude, sticking to their guns. They're going for the archetype that they want to build. Well, no surprises from Boom Esports. It's a control mage. Whoopsies.
Ruby sticking to his champ pool for sure.
They should just pick a big tank at this point. Make sure that they can play front to back. with always like a stat advantage. You just want a stat stick in the front. So Volibear fits that bill perfectly.
Yeah, so Boom have a plan, and kudos to them for committing to it. Like, this is not a team that second guesses what it wants to do in a game of League of Legends. The meta may not be the best for it. Ruby may be the driver of a lot of this stuff, but there's a reason Orianna is always at least somewhat relevant, and there are some serious ball delivery systems coming into that Boom lineup. As a Camille will be the final pickup for the Hong Kong Attitude.
And Hong Kong Attitude, like we were mentioning, going for 1-3-1, getting another split pusher, and this does look like possibly Gwen jungle into Set into the mid lane. You can't really run Set anywhere else. The Gwen jungle is something that we have seen in the LPL. It doesn't have the most terrific of win rates, but Gwen is such a strong power pick. At 87% win rate right now in the PCS. So a lot of teams will just go for this, try to fake out some matchups, and then pick the Gwen. If you think about Gwen's pick, she actually does nothing. She has a very, very subpar kit as a jungler. She has no hard crowd control whatsoever. She has some slows. That's it. And her slows come on level 6. So, I would not consider her a great jungler, but she's there because she's a power pick, and she actually farms quite well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the upside, right? Is you can clear camps fast, and I kind of feel like someone like Kongye is going to maybe want to try and get in and counter jungle rather than getting himself up to a flying start and getting ganks off and really kind of trying to keep track of his opposite number. We did talk about Alex and what he was going to be doing for this team and how it's maybe a little difficult for him to enable any of his lanes in particular because of favored play styles. He's on this Viego. I'm excited to see what that matchup ends up looking like. But, Hong Kong Attitude kind of mixing things around at the last minute, but definitely with a kind of bargain bin of interesting and powerful choices in this lineup to really round things out. Who do you like more in this one, Clement? I know that's always a loaded question when Ruby's on one side of the rift, but I'm curious.
I have to go with Hong Kong Attitude's draft this time around. They have so many good matchups into this one. Wait a minute, is it Trundle bot? Oh yeah, it actually is Trundle bot. Oh.
Yeah. Oh okay. No, we got the gray screen to start, but that means we get to analyze more.
So if we just look at the matchups alone, the matchup between mid lane, Set is a super hard counter to Orianna. Orianna has a lot of difficulty getting away from Set. Early on you're not going to feel it, but post 6, it's extremely one-sided. Set can leave the lane whenever he wants to. There is nothing Orianna can do. She cannot follow that matchup whatsoever. Set comes very, very close to just one-shotting Orianna in most scenarios. So you're not going to see Ruby have an impact whatsoever, I think, at the first 20 minutes of the game. And then you have, I would say, a top lane matchup that, I don't think the matchups are one-sided. The champion matchups are not one-sided, but the player matchups are one-sided. Rock has
you talked about Rocket Rocky. There's definitely a gap there, and I think that maybe that's what Hong Kong Attitude are banking on. They're also very confident in their new mid laner, it seems. Bringing in Wen. Of course, they're giving him a hard counter matchup, but it always is a little weird going up against Ruby, but I guess that plays in their favor this time around because they know what he's going to do, so they pick something that they knew would be able to effectively neutralize him in this game. And that is always, as you pointed out, it can be an anchor to weigh down the side of Boom. So if you're Boom Esports in this game, what are you banking on? What is your game plan? Is it Alex? Is he trying to just get the team ahead with Viego and enable lane snowballs, or what does he do?
I think the bottom line is they're just banking on Hong Kong Attitude not being able to close. And I'll be honest, judging by Spring, that's not a terrible bet to make. If you go to the late game, post 35, Boom Esports' composition, I would give them the lead. I think they do have quite a superior composition and an easier to execute composition. You just sit on objectives and you force the enemy team to run into you. However, I think times have changed. I honestly feel like Hong Kong Attitude has leveled up after Kongyue, and this is a composition that even if you're grouped up, I would still give a winning chance to the right side of the right side of the draft so far. So really, Boom Esports, I think we're going to have another one of those scenarios where you're just going to see one team just kind of sit back and chill and hope the other team doesn't race them to the finish line.
We will find out as we kick things off in this game. Looking across the board, no shenanigans, no crazy invades. It's been A little bit more stock standard, despite some of the picks, of course, being a little crazy. Although Kay's having a little bit of a dance party with Eminem. A lot of swap arounds in this lineups for the Hong Kong Attitude. You talked about them being a baseball team or maybe a soccer team. Certainly has all the hallmarks of it, Clement.
Lots of member on this roster. We'll see how they end up doing. It's great for Hong Kong Attitude. I think we really need to thank their ownership for being willing to pick up so many players. We haven't seen any other team do that. Most teams are actually pretty stagnant until the offseason, but they're willing to go ahead and just get players straight off in the middle of the season. That's actually extremely rare, and especially with rookies. So kudos to them for keeping the scene alive. And I do want to talk a little bit about Trundle. This is one of those supports that was very popular during Kay's time. And I don't want to make him sound like a dinosaur, but it has been a while since we've seen him play in a Premier League. He is 25 years old. He's got a ton of years of experience. Basically, he started playing since Season 3. So, that's just how far this guy goes. And you can tell with some of these old-timers, they have a lot of champion picks to pull back in. And the way the Trundle works is if he gets to chomp down on your AD carry, he actually automatically wins the trade. And nothing else matters. He just steals your attack damage. And for the most part, if you're losing like 20 AD early levels, you just can't win the trade. So that's what we're going to be looking at. But so far, Boom Esports keeping their position, keeping their level lead.
They're playing it out as about as safely as they can. But you're right, sometimes those older picks, those stranger picks, things that you may not have practiced against as much can kind of throw you for a loop, and maybe that's one of those things that Boom are counting on. Now, some experience certainly trumping at least in a couple of lanes so far. Rocky forced to flash out. He sees Kongye coming, and that level 4 Gwen gank. How often do you get to say one of those? A lot of snips, and it looks like Rocky's just going to have to settle for getting a fancy haircut.
Yeah, that was a little bit unfortunate. I felt like Rocky probably underestimated how fast this Gwen could clear. She was actually a camp ahead of Alex the entire time and was able to hit that top lane. Like, Rocky didn't even have to do anything. He didn't really even hit Rocky, and Rocky had to get the flash out correctly, or we would have died in that scenario.
Yeah, it does manage to get away, but what that means, like clockwork, we might be seeing a repeat coming up there. And you talked about how this isn't typically a jungle pick because it doesn't have that hard CC. The ganks can be a little tough, but the upside is there's just such a fast camp clear that you can do things like that. And Kongye definitely banking on mobility, taking that ghost instead of flash.
And it does help a lot when you're in those teamfight scenarios. And so far, Gwen has just been a champion that, in theory, you can deal with her. You force out her mist, and then she doesn't really have all that much mobility. You can kite her out. But in practice, when teamfights get hectic, most of the times we always see Gwen being able to get into the enemy backline. And there's not much the enemy team can even do to help their own AD carry at that point. Like, they have to go into the mist to even damage Gwen, or she's untargetable. And I think it's just way too hard to deal with. Most teams cannot have the coordination, don't have the timing ability to just pull her off. She just takes up too much concentration from the enemy team. So, in theory, yes, you have counters. In practice, she's just a queen, and she's probably the most coveted champion right now in the PCS.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And she's not the only one on this Hong Kong Attitude lineup that can get into the back line when you think about it. You're looking at the likes of that set and the showstopper. You're looking at the Hextech ultimatum that Rock has. Rocco getting popped back on that pillar. Yeah, it's not just the chomp you got to watch out for. There's a lot of tools in the box of Hong Kong Attitude. Although right now, the bottom lane from Boom is certainly doing a great job of pressuring it out. And look at what they're setting up here. The teleport comes in from Ruby after he backed away for a buy, and this is going to be a very well-timed Ocean Drake.
Yeah, and Boom Esports definitely need to do this. What they want in this game is to start stacking dragons and force Hong Kong Attitude to really come to them before they have a split pushing tool online. If they line this up correctly, they will be able to do this before Camille, force a big team fight before Camille hits 3 items and can really just split push 4-1 the entire time. So Boom Esports, at this pace, if they can snowball this 5v5 the entire way, they will get a relatively early Drake timer. That's almost like a 21-minute Drake timer, which is very, very fast. and force Rock to come into team fights when he might not want to before he gets that Sterix gauge.
Certainly the game plan from Boom. Wanted to talk a little bit about that mid lane matchup too, because, well, we know that at this level 6 mark, that's the point where Wen should really be able to start shoving Ruby around. You can see some of the experience in some of these early trades has been bearing out for the likes of Ruby, who's been able to bully Wen off, maybe a little more than he would have liked. But I have a feeling that's probably going to change soon enough.
Yep, you are expected to lose CS a little bit early in this matchup, but here is where all the difference really comes through. It's the fact that he can just leave lane and look at how much respect Ruby has to pay to him. Like, he's not going to be able to drop any wards. Like, Camille is also missing, and there's going to be a ton of pressure just coming from that top lane, mainly emanating through Wen. Now, the big question is, since Wen is a rookie, it's usually much harder for rookies to coordinate where they want to be on the map. And I really want to see Hong Kong Attitude pull off a successful topside skirmish. If they go into a 3v3, there's really no doubt in my mind that they will win out quite heavily, but it's just about can Win hit those spots at the right time, given that he doesn't have experience with the rest of his squad.
That is the question indeed, and we'll have to be keeping an eye on Hong Kong Attitude's new mid laner. Of course, we talked a little bit about K coming back in.
Flash here.
Ooh, I'll talk about that later, because Rocky is caught by Rock in the Hextech ultimatum. He's forced to ult away, and Kongi trying to cut him off, flashing forward, and they will snip, snip, snip for a first blood for the Gwen.
Yeah, you could tell that Rocky was trying to reset the wave really hard, but Rock was able to leverage his HP and stand his ground, and in came the gank. You know, I felt like Rocky played that decently well given his lane position. He was able to dodge out on the last needlework, which does more damage than the first two combined. And even then, he still goes down. So, just unfortunate. A lot about top lane is about wave management, where you want your lane to end up. And he didn't have the help of Alex, and Rock just played that trade a lot better. He knew what was more important in that trade, and it definitely was the lane position. Now Wen might be in a bit of trouble, though.
Yeah, Wen tries to make a play here. That's a big haymaker. Will it be enough as the Mega Inferno Bomb comes through? And Wen is forced to flash away from the shockwave, but he is battered and bruised. And the rookie's going to have to back and buy.
We talked about Seth being able to leave lane whenever he wants to, but probably not against the 1v3. I think he was taking the Seth thing to the extremes just by a bit much, and he does lose the flash for that one. And I think that's actually quite pivotal, because without that flash, it means that in the next Drake fight, which is coming up in less than 90 seconds, the backline is going to be unreachable for Boom Esports. Boom Esports should take this opportunity and just make sure they keep that Drake stack going.
Yeah, I think they're going to try and make that play here, so really good fortune for them, and just good positioning and playing from the rest of the Boom squad. And I like what Ruby was able to do to really follow in zone, because he knew he had his team at his back. Normally, you know, what you talk about, you have to respect the roam from the set. That's all well and true when you don't know where everybody is, but you know when your team's at your back, you can certainly start to make some of those team fighting plays. As we move into this game, still a slim gold lead for Boom. They have the wards in position to try and contest this next dragon. Less than a minute until that mountain comes up.
In the meantime, we also saw Alex actually just solo out the Herald, so it's going to be a very, very strong Drake push coming from Boom Esports. They have the Herald to create a fork and just get 2 plates while drawing away the members from Hong Kong Attitude from setting up the objective early, and that's just a perfect scenario for them. I honestly feel like if Boom Esports try to execute on the Drake contest, they will just lose out massively. So I think the best play for them is try to just, you know, Mega Infernal Death Bomb, try to get a steal, try to get low HPs, but not really go for a full hard contest right here. We'll see what Hong Kong Attitude tries to do here. I don't think Kongra will ever get a gank down. Bot lane's too well warded for that to happen, and Oriana's already playing very respectfully in lane, so Kongra, I honestly feel like Kongra is just like fishing for straws at this point, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, what can you do? Turf Herald is going to get popped down in the mid lane, and this is going to set up that dragon play, using it just as a distraction as they do get the smite down. Arrowed path there, set up. Alex moving his way in, already on half hit points. They have to know this is happening, but, you know, kudos to Boom. They set up a situation where Hong Kong Attitude couldn't make the contest. and they're going to keep that Drake timer rolling.
Yeah, we saw Wen lose a lot of his HP before the Herald even came in, so, props to Hong Kong Attitude. I think they did the right move for just simply not contesting the Drake. That was going to be a very bad idea. But at the same time, I don't think they held their ground as well as they should have. Wen definitely losing out a lot of HP where I feel like he could play a little bit more conservatively, given that, the play is pretty obvious what Alex is going to do in that spot. So a bit of that inexperience coming out. However, Hong Kong Attitude, they preserve all their summoners, and they still have a fighting chance. Their main thing is just kind of waiting on the late game until they get... Oh, but they're going in now. Oh.
I was going to say, speaking of fighting chance, they're certainly trying to take one. And it looked like there was some comms going back and forth on the Hong Kong Attitude side. Everyone started massing, but there's no objective that the team was moving forward. It looked like they just wanted to try and find a collapse, but nothing doing there.
That was very far away from being feasible. Not sure what the call was from Hong Kong Attitude, but Boom Esports get out completely free. I think they were maybe trying to catch out Pop because he did burn his flash earlier on. He was very respectful though, and yeah, he was actually even behind Wako, just providing the lantern, so nothing happens right there. And back to my original point, honestly, Hong Kong Attitude, they shouldn't even sweat losing out on the early game. Doesn't really matter that much, to be absolutely honest. Their win condition still comes from the fact that Rock can side lane split push, and if he gets fed enough, they never really have to entertain a Boom Esports team fight.
Oh, that's true. Ooh, Rocky. In danger of being collapsed on here, but he hops the wall. And he's perfectly fine. It's been a lot of defensive Stormbringers from Rocky tonight.
Yeah, and I wonder what the item is going to be coming out from Trundle. So in the past, it was always a... I just can't remember the item off the top of my head. It's so rare to see that item these days. It wasn't a Nice Foul, it was the other one.
I think you might have occasionally seen a Nice Foul on a Trundle. I'm trying to remember the last time I saw it down in the support position. It was certainly before the item rework.
Yeah.
But that, back in the day, head scratching. The thing is, items have changed so many times, and when you talk about Trundle being like, an old school, like Season 4, Season 5 kind of support that occasionally came in, and I'm like, well, the items that existed back then were very, very different. You want to talk about esports dinosaurs? That was a time.
Yeah, it really was. Trundle has always dipped in and out of the meta, especially when poke comps are kind of in vogue. So I think the concept still applies here. You're trying to trap someone underneath their tower, where Satchel Charge and Bouncing Bomb are going to get maximum effect. That's definitely why we see it just being picked here. And, I think we are getting to the phase where Hong Kong Attitude are trying more different takes to free Wen from the mid lane. We're seeing the supports roam down there a little bit more, try to get the skirmishes going in their favor and try to get the 3v3. That's something I feel like was missing from Hong Kong Attitude this entire game. They had that counter matchup, they drafted for it, but they didn't really put it to use just yet. And now they're finally going to get a chance at the Herald with pretty good scuttle coverage.
Yeah, Hong Kong Attitude finally getting a good place to try and go for the contest. They've lost out on a couple of Dragons and Rift Heralds as well, but this time around, really nice, safe positioning, good ward investment. Up, and Kay even cheekily interrupts, pops back, and he just says, hey, I know exactly where you are.
Yeah, very
As they pop the Rift Herald, I immediately... Here. Yeah, this is a good push.
I like the choice for the top lane as well. I think Camille is definitely the one you're looking at to keep your 1-3-1 or split push dreams alive at this point. So they will just make sure they give her an elongated lane against Rocky, who has lost almost all of his ultimates on cooldown so far. A big surge of gold for Rock as well. And I think that's going to mean rotational advantage for the next couple of Drake fights at this point. Rocky can't really push up against River. He is going to be behind in gold compared to Rock. And what Boom Esports need to do, I think, to further their game plan is they need very, very hard shoves into the mid lane, where they don't have the tower anymore on Hong Kong Attitude's side, to make sure they can get into this Drake fight.
Ooh, speaking of Drake fight, you can see the teleport coming in a little early here. That was just Eminem getting back to lane, it looked like, but a lot of pings going on. Everybody wants a piece of that action as that dragon is coming right back up. BME Esports there first to try and set things up, and the Herald Path, they're going to look for it. Kongye was sniffed out, and he's running back to the rest of his team. That control ward is there. We've got a 3v3, soon to turn into that much more as Alex gets instant exhausted, pulled back in. The box is there, and Rock goes for the Hextech ultimatum onto Alex. Showstopper coming through, and it is just a big knockdown, drag-out brawl as Kongye finishes off the big bear. Rocky thought he was away, but he was not anywhere near the rest of his team. And the fight goes Hong Kong Attitude's way, 2 for 1.
I think BME Esports actually jumped the gun just a little in that initial fight. They used their ultimates to no avail, and now Ruby's caught.
They found Ruby. Yeah, looks like he has to flash away when doing what he needs to, being on the front line. Dragon aggro does get reset. This is still a tense moment as the health bars are a little bit low, and Boom decide, all right, we've invested a little too much in this, and they back away. They will lose out on the Dragon advantage for now, unless Wako did something absolutely insane, but I didn't think that was happening.
Really good TP usage from Hong Kong Attitude to get into the fight first. Alex, I think, just going in and softening up the targets here is fine. He gets out with the Lantern. But here's the big mistake from BME Esports. They waste the entire 2 ultimate plus rotation on absolutely no one, and that's just the go sign for Hong Kong Attitude. Wen also gets a good push into the back line, making sure to disrupt that damage dealing. And Hong Kong Attitude, this is super successful from them. They stop the entire the Drake stack, and that just means Rock is going to get his team fight items and get to that later stage of the game where he's going to be much more influential before having to commit to a full 5v5, which BME Esports should come out ahead of. And, you know, that's... I feel really bad about that because I don't think BME Esports understood the dynamics of the way they should have played that one. The way they should have done it is just sit on your objectives and just wait until the enemy team to come into you. There's no reason that you should be missing those skill shot ultimates when Hong Kong Attitude have to run into you.
Yeah, positioning definitely played a big part in all of that. And I do want to give credit to Wen, though, for doing such a great job zoning the BME Esports damage dealers away. Like, I feel like that really helped seal the deal. They were already ahead in the fight. I mean, it was a great jump in by Rock, but you know, the rookie is certainly turning up where he's needed, at least for now.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid to make big plays into team fights, going to the back. He didn't really get the stun, though, but, you know, that was enough for them to win the entire thing.
That was, for just a second, Kongye goes forward and is like, maybe I don't want the 2v4. Little bold.
Not a great idea.
They got the pressure on, though. I like what Rock is doing here on that top side.
Yeah, I really want to see how BME Esports actually even respond to this top wave at this point. You can see that their answer so far has been to just 5-man group, try to get picked somewhere, disregard the top lane for now, but that's not always going to work out, and for the most part, you do get punished for that play. That's a low percentage play, unless Hong Kong Attitude face checks, which, to be honest, they nearly did. So they do need some more systematic answers. I wonder if Alex is going to make a visit towards the top lane, but he might get caught before that.
Oh, Kongye does get caught himself, but he takes the scissors to Alex and Pop. Kay a little slow to get back into the action, but Rocky comes around for the shutdown. That's a lot of gold into the top laner's pocket as Kongye was holding all the kills for Hong Kong Attitude. Now it's a mad dash to escape, and Clement, that seemed a little ill-advised from Hong Kong Attitude.
Yeah, I understood the thought process behind that. They were trying to ward out for Rock as the wave was pushing in and try to get skirmishes there, which should be in their favor. However, just chasing that target was probably a little bit much. They weren't going to get that kill either way, and that really exposed Kongye up to the thresh hook. So well done on BME Esports' side. You know, they answer, they anticipate Kongye coming in and trying to set up the split push, and they punish accordingly.
If you bait it, they will come, and that certainly worked out for BME Esports. So 20 minutes on the clock have now passed, and we have the game kind of standing thus. It's a slim gold lead for Boom. They've got a little bit of an objective advantage, but as we pointed out, their Dragon Rush had sort of been stymied a little bit, and some interesting choices from Hong Kong Attitude, getting them a little bit more behind, but they do have a later stage of the game to look forward to. Just maybe you need to take a step back. Just relax a little bit. That's okay.
Yeah, both teams do have some late game answers here, and I'll be honest, like, Ziggs is such a good champion at just stalling out games. It makes it incredibly difficult to push against him. He sets up his minefield, his satchel, and you can't walk up anymore. And
you want to talk about a Season 4 strat. We used to see that all the time. I mean, I remember a guy in the LPL named You used to play that Ziggs mid lane.
It was so painful. Season 4 was one of my least favorite metas just because of the way that you could stall. There were so many teams in Europe that season that were just running Jax or Kale in the top lane and Ziggs mid. It was hell to watch. Like, games could last for an hour, and, you know, lifetimes could go by before you saw a decisive team fight.
That's true. It was definitely a pretty slow meta for a while. Things are a little bit faster these days, but these youngins in watching and playing are probably not interested in a couple of old geezers like us talking about days gone by, I would imagine, Clement. But there is a team fight brewing right now as the hook goes in onto the rookie. Wen is flayed back, but he goes for the haymaker. Keep himself alive, flashes out, missteps a little bit, and sensing the mistake, Alex goes in to finish the kill. Boom Esports find one, and there is a dragon on the rift for them taking.
Just a very simple pickup right there. They get the crowd control, but the fight goes on.
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to get out, but the Hextech ultimatum, you can't quite escape from that one, but you do have the numbers to make it work. Eminem gets a shutdown, but the rest of the Hong Kong attitude will get dropped. And Alex picking up 2 kills in this game. That was something else.
Yeah, I just feel like there's not a whole lot to say about that team fight. Hong Kong attitude, just sort of inting it here. Wen could have taken a much better path there. I would have gone to the right side and just try to showstopper Ruby outside, but Hong Kong, Boom Esports are going to use this opportunity for a straight Baron take, and if you look at the death timers, Camille is still not back into the fight, so Boom Esports get a massive tempo lead exactly when they need it.
And they're going to try to finish this one off, and once again, Wen on the front line doesn't manage to finish off anybody. Pop got dropped low, but I think the objective was to get Boom Esports off the, well, objective, and so far that worked.
Yeah, that was pretty critical. You can't really split push against someone who has an empowered minion wave, so getting that Baron buff off, getting Boom Esports off the Baron, even while, you know, sacrificing the rookie, I definitely think is a worthwhile call for Hong Kong attitude. Not so sure about the Boom Esports turn. I actually felt like they probably could have gone just straight up for it because Kongyo was dead at that point, and that meant no smite. So I actually would have preferred if Boom Esports just stayed on the objective and finish it off. It was a high percentage play that they would be able to get it. But, you know, kudos to Hong Kong attitude for definitely being able to dissuade them.
Just chucking out as much as they can to keep these waves cleared and pushed in their favor. Hong Kong attitude suffering a bit of a setback as Wen, finding himself getting caught, really sets up that series of plays, but he comes up with the dissuading damage on the rest of the Boom Esports players before he dies once again. Rookie having an interesting start to his PCS career here, as both teams sniffing around the Baron, but unable to really find secured vision. K stepping forward, frozen domain.
Oh, we do have Eminem that should start hurting a lot. Wow, that was beautiful pillar placement. Actually stops Wako from retreating back to his own tower, so you could definitely see that K is an old-timer that has had his time on the Trundle pick. It's actually, interesting enough, Trundle support was, during that split, was first picked in the LMS. It was Dreamer, the coach of Machi, that first picked it in competitive that split. And you saw a lot of people starting to imitate him from across different regions, just realizing, wait a minute, Trundle's actually really, really strong. You pillar level 2, and then you get a bite on the enemy AD carry, you just automatically win the trade. So you saw a lot of Trundles that split, and that was when K was still active as well. Now Boom Esports, taking us back to the present time, are going to set up for this, but I don't think that Hong Kong attitude want to respond. They probably just want to drag this out until Rock for sure has his teleport.
Yeah, right now Rock's sitting on the bottom side and just shoving the wave, so they do not want to commit to a full fight because they want to have the 5v5, but Rocky looking for the flank onto Wen. and he's just chasing him away. They aren't able to find the damage as 5, though, and if you're Hong Kong Attitude, you're okay with this because you know you stalled out, you've bought time. But the turn for the Baron, will it be for real this time? It looks like it is.
They have already dragged out one ultimate from the Infernal Mega Death Rocket. Death Bomb. Oh, those skill names are so similar. But Hong Kong Attitude
I think they're named by the same
over.
person, to be honest. This is already getting low, though. Box is set up. They're going to try to get in for the smite fight, and it's not going to be enough. It looks close for a second, but Alex with the secure. Alex with the takedown of Kongye. Now Rocky on the front, looking forward. Alex moving again on the Viego, and I think Hong Kong Attitude were just a smidge too late, and they lose 2, and it looks like they will not be able to stop the Baron push.
Yeah, Hong Kong Attitude, they needed to drag that one out for one more wave and get Rock his teleport in. Instead, they lose sight of Boom Esports before he gets the Summoner, and Boom Esports are easily able to rush that one down. You know, they know Ziggs doesn't have his ultimate, so they're free to group up on this Baron, deal a lot of damage. Perfect zoning from Pop, and then they also get the kill on Kongya, which starts the reset chain for Alex, and there's just no way you can fight this from that position anymore. A little bit unfortunate. I felt like Hong Kong Attitude could have played Boom Esports a lot closer, but kudos to Boom Esports. They recognize they had really, really good summoner tracking. Like, that was not a guaranteed fight if Camille could join, but they definitely knew that Rock did not have the TP ready.
No, that was really well played around those timers, and Hong Kong Attitude. I mean, I'm sensing a little frustration and maybe desperation out of this team. As you can see, Kongye went in to try to get the hero smite steal, and also just now, K forced to flash away. That sets up another dragon. Boomer on Cloud Soul right now. They're gonna get it.
There's nothing they can do.
My goodness. Hong Kong Attitude just kind of caught out here. There's a big showstopper, but Wen doesn't have any team and does go for the flash face breaker, and he's hanging in there, but not long enough, and I don't think his team wanted that fight. They were not very committed.
Yeah, definitely seems like Wen wasn't able to tell the rest of the team what he wanted to do, and no one followed up. He even expended the flash for that one, so very questionable. Now, I will say in his defense, oh, never mind, Kongye, goodbye.
Oh, Kongye, yep, he goes golden inside the Thresh box, tries to get out of there, has the mist on. That's clutch. Can they maybe turn a fight here with the Baron, with the Soul? Kongye does start by taking down Rocky with a little help from Rock, and that stops the push. That was what Hong Kong Attitude needed.
Yeah, really, they forced the corridor fight, and Eminem was untouched while he was able to chunk out Ruby down below half on the first rotation. So, you know, that's just really well done by Kongye, especially with his Zhonya's to stall that one out. And going back to my original point, we have seen in the past Ziggs being able to one-shot immobile carries, especially when you have 2 of them, like, oh, never mind. Even though he's immobile, he still deals tons of damage.
Yeah, but Wako, he steps too far forward. Eminem's probably still going to die in this one. Yes, Alex finishes him off. The two-man shockwave pulls K and Rock back in, and this is just absolute chaos in the mid lane. Showstopper bringing in Facebreaker. Wen trying to make up and be the hero. Big shutdowns on the board, and Hong Kong Attitude nearly get that ace and are pushing down mid lane. Clement, what the hell is happening?
Never mind what I said about the rookie. He is a genius. He's got everything under control. Everything was calculated right from the start. They've made Boom Esports fall off kilter. They got them off balance with the initial throw. Like, Wen was throwing twice in these team fights. But that meant that Wako was affected. Wako has got this hero mentality. If he sees a chance, he's going to take it. And he saw Eminem disrespecting him. So he walked up to the plate, and Wen played the long con. He got the 3-man at the very end. Let's go from the start here. But Wako, he definitely overplays his hand. Like, Eminem is a juicy Yordle, but it's not worth flashing in for that one. That was definitely a terrible mistake. And at this point, the formation is broken for Boom Esports. If you're playing a front-to-back team fight, you have to keep in formation. Your backline carry is dead, and you have these bruisers right on top of your Orianna. There's no way you're going to come up in that fight. And I just feel like that was Hong Kong Attitude mesmerizing Boom Esports. You know, they've thrown 3 team fights in a row, and that just got into their heads that they could do anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's some serious 4D chess coming out of the rookie player. Wen, give him some credit there, and the rest of Hong Kong Attitude. Remember, losing pretty decisively earlier today to Beyond Gaming, looking to try and even the scoreline out at 1-1. And Boom have been giving them hell, but they're holding firm. Coming back into this one, still in a gold deficit, but showing that they can fight it out. And going back to the 1-3-1, it seems like they just have two modes. They switch between the two of them, and they're able to almost flawlessly do it at this point. Still plenty of game to play, but this is certainly the closest one we've had so far today.
Yeah, and I do want to point out the itemization coming in from Rock. At this point, he has realized that he's not going to get away with that much split pushing. The game has already gone into the phase where, with these Cloud Souls online, Boom Esports can just rotate a little bit too quickly. They can go for Barons a little bit too frequently. So he has transitioned most of his build actually into team fighting build. He has not completed his Ravenous Hydra first, which is the typical way you want to go if you were going for a 1-3-1. But he realizes, okay, I'm actually not that far ahead of Rocky at this point. The game has sort of been dragged way too much into a 5v5, and he has itemized for teamfight components. And I think that's the right call in this situation. The question is, can Hong Kong Attitude once again get that sort of a lopsided fight where Gwen gets into the back line, where Camille is face-to-face with someone like an Oriana? That's kind of their win positions at this point. I don't think they're going to be able to play split push just because the objectives are coming up so quick and fast and they just don't have that much of a lead on their solo lanes. But they have itemized correctly for the 5v5.
Yeah, good adaptations from Hong Kong Attitude. Starting to come together a little bit for them too. While we have a rare moment of downtime, just glancing across the items too. We were asking a lot about that Trundle and what he was going to itemize into. We got our answer a little while ago. The Imperial Mandate. The Trundle support.
Yeah, that's
that
definitely
happens.
A weird one. I was thinking about Zeke's Convergence. That's the old Trundle build, so but Zeke's Convergence was changed, so it now does extra damage to immobilize targets, but in the past it also had a slow field. It was a very tanky item, and honestly it was a lot better of an item. So it used to be Zeke's Convergence, Knight's Vow Rush, but now we have the new Trundle, and I'm not sure about the efficacy of this one.
I kind of feel like a Shirelia's might have been a little better, but that's okay. We're going to let K do what K wants. So far it's doing all right in this game. Storm comes down a little bit now. Everyone's playing around the dragon. Elder spawns in less than 30 seconds. Talked about itemizing for that 5v5. Hong Kong Attitude showed their hand, showed they really were geniuses. 2 throws in a row just to throw them off kilter, maybe 3 rather. But now Boom are wary. Everyone's got summoners.
The flanking here. A couple things we do have to remember is that Wako does have a stopwatch. It's a very important buy because what we've seen in these late game team fights is Ziggs is able to one-shot your AD carry if he doesn't have any form of stoppage on damage. And we also have to pay close attention to the flanking routes here. Both Wen and Camille are flanking, and if I'm Boom Esports, my decision would probably to go for Wen's side. So far he's shown that he might go in a little bit early, so I would try to play towards Wen's side, and I think that's what Boom Esports is actually doing. You can see them slanting more towards the top side of this ramp rather than the bottom side where Rink might come through. Now with the reset, they should be able to get a closer angle.
Ziggs and Trundle zoning has been brutal. Here comes the Mega Inferno Bomb just to get a little extra chip damage down. And look at how low Hop is actually taken out, and they turn immediately as Rocky tried for the flank. They flank him instead. He has to go into the Zhonya's for just a second. Can't clear the wall, forced to flash away. Rock is tracking, but he's going way too low here, and he pops his own stopwatch. Hong Kong Attitude playing tag team League of Legends, and they're making it look so good. But scratch that as K gets popped by Ruby. It's a turnaround again, and these fights are so close. Now the Elder once again.
Imperial Mandate for the win. I'm sorry for ever doubting you. The poke damage was enough. They didn't even flank. They just straight out stood there and took away Pop's life before he could even get close.
Alex forced to flash back. This is just so crazy. Kongye trying to heal in the back of the pit. Rock. Ruby forced to flash away.
Ultimate.
Everything is burnt. This fight is still going on, and that dragon solo taken down by Wako, and they walk away with the prize by the skin of their teeth.
That was so crazy from the back end for Boom Esports. They lose 2 members at the start of it, but then come back with 200 ears and the poke damage to kite away from Hong Kong Attitude. A lot of great dodgeball being played right there from Boom Esports to come back and claim the 3v5. That was...
oh boy.
That was insane. And they're also going to be able to link that directly into a Baron try.
Like, this is huge. Like, that was such a huge win for Boom, despite how bad it looked for a little while. And that fight went on so long. You know how Riot's got 200 years of collective game design? Boom Esports have 200 years of collective team fighting. And they made it work out for them. Baron gonna get picked up. They've gotten almost all the objectives on the board this game. And Hong Kong Attitude wanted to play for the late, but it's not always going in their favor. Let's take a look at the tail end of that fight again.
This was so crazy because Eminem managed to get 2 ultimates off in one team fight, but it still wasn't enough. I felt like Kongyue got so enticed by the kill in Alex, he actually over-chased right here, lost a lot of his damage, and was forced to leave the pit. That definitely was the biggest mistake. He should have kept his formation and just let Eminem do the work for him. You look at Eminem, this guy is still sitting at 90% HP. If they just held, they could have just taken that Elder Drake, but they just wanted to finish off Alex a little bit too much, and Alex still manages to get out in time anyway.
Split focus, resulting in Boom Esports taking away the Elder Dragon from right under their nose. And now with 1 inhibitor down, the siege is on into mid lane. 5 members strong, and Hong Kong Attitude can't stop this. They're going to have to hold for a desperate fight, but they can't clear against it. I don't care how big the Ziggs is. He can't clear against those Baron-empowered minions. And on to the Nexus turrets they go. This will be the hold for Hong Kong Attitude. Kongyue going in, straight to the box he goes. Mega Inferno Bomb, not doing enough. Kongyue can't get out in time, and Pop will finish the job. Wen tried to face break a few together, but just got some chip damage down. 5v4, but the minions are pushed back. Here they come again.
It's a Ziggs.
I mean, this is so tense.
Should be fine. Oh, there's actually still 43 seconds. Never mind. I actually changed my statements. I think it would be kind of a small miracle if they survive this, especially with the Baron. Not even Ziggs is going to do that much.
Oh boy, Wen goes in, tries to slam down Rocky. Not going to be enough. A little low on the health bars there for Boom Esports, but they're still pushing forward with the minions. They get the last of the Nexus turrets, focusing on the Nexus itself. They're starting to get dropped down. Is this the hold here? Shockwave doesn't connect. Rocky trying, but he can't get the job done. Hong Kong Attitude looking to hold and then some. Will they be able to find the kill onto Pop? They go for the chase. So low on the health bars are the remaining members of Boom, but I think they're out.
And Rock still is on the chase and does have TP, so he's going to go really ham on this one. Doesn't find it. You can actually check if there are opponents over the wall with the hook shot, but he's not going to find anything. And I think he's going to give up the chase afterwards. So I stand by my original comment. They do hold on, but honestly, I felt like Boom Esports misplayed just a little bit, especially on the Shockwave like you were mentioning. This was a 4v5 situation. Let's see how they kind of misplay this once more. They could have waited for the minions to just come into that one. Alex actually takes an unnecessary tower shot. And then we have Rocky chasing everyone super low. They get the first tower. And this is where like things start to fall apart here. I just feel like Alex kind of died for nothing. That was just completely unnecessary damage taken. He doesn't even trade any abilities off, and then Ruby misses his ultimate. So I don't know. Hong Kong Attitude just getting saved by the bell.
Yeah, you know, hey, stranger things have happened. 13-13 in kills so far. By far the longest game we've had today as we crest the 40-minute mark. Boom Esports looking to make it around 3 for 3 as they shove up the bot lane now, but Hong Kong Attitude have, by the grace of Boom's throw, stayed alive.
Yeah, and I will still say that Boom Esports are still in a very comfortable position as we see Ruby going straight in.
On to Eminem, Mega Inferno Bomb's not going to save you very long, my friend, and Wen goes in for the hero play, but there's no follow-up damage. Oh, never mind.
900.
As he deletes Ruby off the map. Maybe they got a chance here. Kongyue and Rock going in, looking for the damage, but those are some tanky boys on top of them right now. Rocky over the wall. He goes into the Hextech ultimatum, but the eyes are on the prize. Alex trying to cut him down to size and they're both going to come right back up. And this one pop does not connect. The resurrect, it comes down just a smidge too late. Kongye trying and not able to stay in this one. And boom, Esports will finally end the fight when trying to be the hero. But he's got a lot of people coming towards the Nexus right now, and I think this is going to be all she wrote, Clement.
Yeah, there's nothing Hong Kong Attitude can do this time around. What an intense and close fight on the left side of that one. A great move from Ruby, you know, he trades off the Ziggs right off the bat. You know, gets traded back himself, but on the flip side, it really was a duel between the two junglers in Alex and Kongyue. Snip getting full charges going all the way, but on the final time, he mistimes the resurrection coming in from the GA, I believe, and just, you know, goes in a little bit too early, which gives Wako the opening to close out the game. Congratulations to Boom Esports. I did say I favored Hong Kong Attitude's draft a little bit more, but they were able to stand tall in the early game. They didn't let their deficits get to them, and they also got the objective stacking going good enough where we never really saw the split pushing come into effect from Rock's side. It just was a non-factor in that Camille.
Yeah, he itemized for the 5v5 after the fact, and, you know, it worked out for a little while, but I think Boom really did keep their eyes on the game plan after maybe a few stumbles in the early game. That fight at the first Cloud Dragon definitely comes to mind, but, you know, they picked up the pieces. They kind of were able to find some openings. There were still really good fights from Hong Kong Attitude side. I think Wen really kind of went from extreme to extreme in this game in his first match in the PCS. So kudos to him for having some highlight reel moments and trying to save the day. But it just wasn't enough. Hong Kong Attitude, in some key moments, really kind of faltered and mistimed. A little bit of the micro is sort of off. You know, you have to wonder if maybe sometimes when they're swapping around players, there's small delays in communication because they haven't been able to build the synergy as much. But either way, Boom Esports take a very hard-earned victory here. And I think that despite how messy it was, they'll be very happy about it.
They have to be happy about this one. Like, Boom Esports, if they fell to Hong Kong Attitude, we do have to remember Hong Kong Attitude barely sneaked into playoff in Spring Split. They're projected to be a pretty low team, even with the addition of Kongyue. So if you're Boom Esports and you finish 5th in Spring, only to be taken out by HKA, that definitely does not bode well for your chances here. And, you know, going back to the game itself, like you said, I felt like this game was... It was a lot of execution mistakes coming out from Hong Kong Attitude. They gave Boom Esports a few too many easy passes early on. I felt like the first invade into the jungle where Kongyue just dies, and then they had Wen just dying out of nowhere. Those two things were probably not how they wanted it to go. We didn't see any advantage from Set whatsoever, despite, you know, if you look overall competitively, the Set versus Orianna matchup is actually very one-sided. It's almost a 65-35 matchup in favor of the Set in terms of win rate. They never really got the Set to roam or link up with the top lane with Camille in Rock, where he also had a very big lead. I think that was kind of a pity. And then, despite Rock finally getting ahead, it was already to the point where the Drake stack was at 3 and Baron fights were starting, where he never got enough time to actually cause damage on the split push and split the enemy team apart. So, you know, they just had a lot of mishaps in the early game, individual mistakes where they missed crucial timing windows and gave that 5v5 late game over to the side of Boom Esports.
Yeah, and Hong Kong Attitude, as a result, will drop to 0-2 on the day, and I'm sure they're not happy about that one, but there's definitely a lot of footage to review to go back and really try and figure out what went wrong for them and to try and move forward. I do like that they're trying out different players. Let's take a look at how this game went. It was over 40 minutes, 41 and a half just about. The most damage dealt altogether was that Ziggs, but he wasn't getting the finishers on the kills. He wasn't really able to do much by the end. You could see that Mega Inferno Bomb was just tickling the more tanky members. And slow and steady wins the race when it comes to that Aphelios. He was able to just consistently pump out damage where it counted, even securing the Elder in that fight.
Yeah, that was really surprising there. With Alex so low health, he was down to like a sub 100 HP. I didn't think he was able to come back there, but they trade out Kongyue in the process and were able to secure the Elder Drake. Part of the not killing targets and run rotation definitely comes out to build as well. As we did see, Ziggs went for more of a more consistent poke build with the Leandri's Anguish and the Morellos to boost as well. And coupled up with the Trundle Pillar, I think it was the right call. Like, it's a far more consistent build than something like the Ludens, but it also does mean in critical situations you're not going to be able to one-shot a backline carry. You don't have the magic pen, you don't have the extra burst. So, you know, you can debate if the finishing kills are really that important compared to that one, but we do have to factor in sometimes the itemizations will cause that sort of effect in team fights.
You're right that those small decisions really do have a big impact, especially when the game goes really long. And I was kind of going back up and down the lineup in my head where the MVP was going to go, and I think Wako makes the most sense here. There wasn't like a pop off in this game across the board, but he was just consistent. He was where he needed to be when he needed to be, and he just farmed his way up to relevance.
And how many times do you see an AD carry actually take the Elder Dragon?
In this meta? Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy. But
if he did not get that, if he didn't get that Elder Dragon, I'm pretty sure the game would have at least gone to 50 minutes, or would have ended up in a situation where you just see Camille being unstoppable in the side lane, just 1v2ing people. So
this is what happens when we talk about the old meta where games would go an hour, and we almost brought it into existence. It almost went an hour. What can you do?
Yeah, Ziggs wasn't full item at that point, so it was really important for the Elder Dragon to actually go through. Ziggs full item can actually just kill your AD carry regardless of what he itemized.
Yeah,
so
whether or not
really
he
critical
play.
play.
I mean,
no.
Yeah, like I think Boom, like really kudos to them for keeping to their game plan and executing on it. A little bit of stumbling in the beginning, but Hong Kong Attitude have looked pretty scary in all of these drafts, but they've just started to fall apart a little bit in some of those micro moments, and they have a lot of thinking to do. But Boom can be very happy with that win today.
Yeah, hopefully they can settle their roster before week 3. I think going any further in that, you're jeopardizing your playoffs.
Yeah, there's still some time. We still got a little bit more to go. But speaking of time, we'll be going on a quick cooldown. We'll be right back with more of the PCS Summer.